India just had one of those weeks, a week that honestly feels like a perfect snapshot of a nation kind of at war with itself. On one hand, you had all the headlines dominated by pop culture, big celebrations. But right underneath that, a bunch of really serious crises were brewing. So let's unpack this, because it's a real study in contrasts.
And really, this slide just says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you have what we were all talking about. Sports superstars, insane auction prices for cricket players, the national obsessions. But then look at the other side, the harsh realities we were actually facing. A crazy AI deepfake crisis, air quality so bad it's literally hazardous, and our forests are just under attack. It's like these two completely different conversations are happening at the same time, and the disconnect is, well, it's pretty jarring.
All right, so let's start with the digital side of things. I'm talking about our digital double-edged sword. All this technology that's supposed to connect us? Well, it's being turned against us more and more. And this past week gave us a really terrifying glimpse of just how sharp that other edge of the sword can be.
I mean, just take the case of the social media creator Pile Gaming. She became the latest person to be targeted by AI deepfakes. Suddenly, fake AI-generated videos of her were all over the internet. It got so bad she had to file an FIR with the cybercrime police. It's just this really stark personal reminder that in this new age of AI, our private data, it's never been more vulnerable.
Yeah, and a quote from one of the sources we looked at just perfectly captures this fear. It says, "Social media is great, but its dark side is how your private life can be distorted. You won't even know it." And that's the really scary part, isn't it? Is that complete loss of control. The idea that someone can just take your identity and twist it into something else, and you might not even know it's happening. That is deeply unsettling.
Okay, so let's shift gears now. We're moving from the digital world to the physical one. And here, the crisis, it isn't just about pollution. It's about something bigger, this pervasive environment of denial. The gap between what's actually happening and what's being said, it just seems to be getting wider and wider.
Just look at this number, 600. That was the actual air quality index, the AQI, in parts of India this week. And to give you some perspective, anything over 50 is considered unhealthy. 50. So we're talking about a number 12 times that. This isn't just bad air, you guys. This is a severe public health emergency, plain and simple.
So, with the air literally at emergency levels, how did officials respond to this clear and present danger? Well, with this staggering statement from the Rajya Sabha, and I quote, "There is no conclusive evidence that this air is bad for the lungs. We don't accept it." I mean, wow. Just a flat-out denial right in the face of a crippling crisis.
And this denial? It's not just words. It translates directly into policy. The stated goal is always development for the nation, right? Building malls, tech parks, new highways. But the real cost? Wow. We're talking about massive deforestation protests in the Aravallis, plans to chop down 45,000 mangrove trees in Mumbai. We're literally watching entire ecosystems get sacrificed for a version of progress that completely ignores the air we all have to breathe.
So you might be wondering, what connects all of this? The tech crisis, the environmental denial? Well, it brings us to the real heart of the matter. All of these things are symptoms of a much deeper issue, inequality. And to really get who holds the power and who ends up paying the price, we have to dive into the numbers from the latest World Inequality Report. Okay, first things first, a really quick but super important clarification. We're going to talk about income and wealth, and they're not the same thing. Income is what you earn, your salary, what comes in every month. Wealth is what you own, your assets, property, savings, the whole shebang. And trust me, this distinction is absolutely crucial for what we're about to see.
All right, so let's start with income, what people are earning. The top 10% of earners in India, they take home the majority of the entire national income. Meanwhile, the bottom 50%, we're talking half the entire country, they have to get by on just 15% of it. The gap is, well, it's staggering.
But here's the kicker. If you thought the income gap was staggering, just wait till you see the wealth gap. It's even more extreme. The top 10% of the population owns 66%. That's 2/3 of the nation's total wealth. And if we zoom in even more, just the top 1% alone owns 40% of everything. That leaves a tiny, tiny fraction for the entire bottom half of the country.
Okay, to make these numbers feel a little less abstract, the source used a really powerful analogy. Imagine you have 100 chocolates to give to 100 children. Now, in this scenario, the top 10 kids get 75 of those chocolates. The next 40 kids in the middle, they get 23. And the bottom 50 kids, they have to share just 2 chocolates between all of them. Suddenly, those percentages feel very, very real, don't they?
And this inequality, it connects directly back to that environmental crisis we were talking about. So who's actually causing climate change? Well, the data is pretty clear. The top 10% of emitters are responsible for a whopping 75% of all carbon emissions. And the bottom 50%, the very people who are most affected by the bad air and the climate disasters, they're only responsible for 3%. It's an incredible imbalance.
So what happens when the air becomes unbreathable and the inequality feels crushing? What's the ultimate consequence of a system like this? Well, people with the means to do so leave. Let's take a look at who is actually leaving the country, and more importantly, why they're doing it.
Get this. In just the last 5 years, almost 900,000 Indians have renounced their citizenship. Think about that. They're not just moving abroad for a job for a few years. They are permanently, officially giving up their Indian nationality, all in the search for something better.
And we're not just talking about a brain drain here. One of the sources we looked at put it really powerfully. Those who arrived in life departed from the country. This is about people who've already made it. High net worth individuals, millionaires, even billionaires. So it's not just a brain drain, it's a massive financial drain too.
So why would they make such a huge, drastic choice? Well, the reasons they give are brutally simple and direct. Bad air, bad water, and a feeling that there's just no real will to fix these basic fundamental problems. At the end of the day, it's a search for a better, healthier standard of living. It's as simple as that.
And all of this really brings us to a final big question. The problems we've talked about, from AI deepfakes to crushing inequality and literally unbreathable air, they're all crystal clear. And honestly, a lot of the solutions seem pretty straightforward, right? So why does it always feel like the responsibility falls on ordinary people to raise their voice? What's it going to take for these huge systemic problems to finally get real systemic solutions? That's the question this whole week leaves us asking.